on a jog. I'll be going for a walk with my kids. I'll probably spend some time with my kids today. It's a Sunday. And I feel really, really guilty about that. And in terms of why I actually feel guilty, and you're probably the similar ways in terms of why you actually feel guilty, I was thinking about what that means for me, and maybe you actually relate to this. So when I was a kid, basically through the age of 10 to 15 years old, I didn't have any friends. I really was not that kind of person that had a lot of friends, probably even before that. There were some experiences in my life where I didn't feel or I didn't have friends. And, you talk to people in high school, you'll talk to you talk to my family, they'll tell you the exact same thing. I really didn't have a lot of friends. And this is something that I've been working on. And I think it's been chasing me my whole life. And it's something that I encourage you to do in terms of thinking about why you feel guilty or why you have a negative emotions for anything that's going on in your life. So going back to that, when I was 10 to 14 years old, I had thoughts in my head that if I only improved myself in some sort of way, that I would be able to, I'd be able to get friends. I'd be able to win the girl, right? The opposite sex would find me attractive because if I started working out. So I went to the gym. I thought maybe if I studied really hard and worked really hard towards the end of my high school career, I definitely started thinking like that. And if I got into university at a really good university, then the opposite sex would pay attention to me and I'd have more friends around me, not necessarily just the opposite sex, but other people would think that I was attractive to them and that I was somehow, going places and people would want to pay attention to me. Even in university, once I got through that sort of phase and those feelings of that, I still felt like that in university. If I worked really hard and I was the top of my class, or near the top of my class, I never was quite the top of my class, but I did okay. If I was pretty good, then more people would pay attention to me and more people would want to be around me. So these feelings of being alone, these feelings of not feeling that other people care for me, have been chasing me around, and that has been my driver, going all the way through into going into higher education and becoming a professor. This has been something that I've been dealing with, and every time that I don't necessarily work, it feels to me like that I'm sort of moving down in my social status, and that people are not going to pay attention to me, people are not going to care about me. And in the last 5 years, especially the last couple years, I've been working on that in terms of these feelings and trying to disregard this guilt and trying to work on that. So I'm going to always have this feeling of guilt because those feelings were imprinted in me from a long time ago. And I think that this is always going to be deep down in terms of who I am. And I'm always going to be probably pushing because of that. And the biggest thing for me is to work on dealing with rejecting the feelings of what other people are going to say, and rejecting the being evaluated in some sort of way, because if it wasn't being evaluated in high school because of what I look like, that was probably the biggest predictor. I was definitely an overweight kid at that time. I was probably 30 pounds overweight. So I always thought that maybe if I worked out a little bit more, that would help me out and people would want to hang out with me. So I got that under control. Then I started thinking about, maybe it's because I wasn't smart enough. And if you remember my story, when I started out in where I was in special ed for until I was in grade 5. Turns out that I have ADHD. And, maybe you have stuff like that as well that you're dealing with. And so what is going on behind me? This is very real and very authentic. This is really like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm talking about this in public. But what I've been dealing with in the last 6 months is how do I manage this? And the way that I think I manage this in terms of these feelings is being more public about the fact that, I had these things happen to me. I had these sort of traumatic moments where, for 5 years of my life, when I was being, formed and developed, I didn't have any friends. And so that really pushed me going forward, where I'm always feeling like I need to accumulate more friends. I need to accumulate whatever it is, status. And so of that is driving me to feel guilty whenever I'm not working, because I associate working or, working out or, trying to be attractive, trying to be funny, trying to whatever it is, with the feelings of that I'm making progress and I'm accumulating, I'm accumulating likes, for example. I'm accumulating, I'm accumulating friends, whatever it is. I think if you're like me, I'm probably not alone in a lot of these feelings and what is driving me. I think a lot of this is pretty normal in terms of, social development, in terms of the experiences that we have. We all have moments in our life where things don't go our way, or we feel really alone or dark, and those do chase us around, right? And we have to learn how to deal with them. So for me, a big part of this, that the whole reciprocity project, is not only trying to help you out and stuff, and that's actually probably where a lot of this is coming from. Oddly enough, why I feel the need that I need to create a website that is trying to help you out is because I felt like that, and those emotions are driving me to do this for you, which is a good thing. That's all positive, right? Like, a lot of this stuff is really positive, but it also brings up some of these negative emotions of, guilt, for example, or not feeling good enough, or feeling inadequate, feeling alone. All of those things are really tied to this sort of long-term journey. And the more that I work on this by being open to you, open to a public audience, hopefully some of the folks from high school watch this. I encourage them, that would be awesome if they watch this and see how I feel. Because I think that it's not just me that went to that high school, that went to any high school across the country, across the world, right? I grew up in Canada. And all of these things, they kind of follow you around, and know that it is normal to have these experiences. And part of personal development is recognizing that and being open with these experiences to other people. And it is tricky for me to talk about them. It's probably be a heck of a lot more difficult for me to talk to you in person, but for some reason it's easier for me to talk to you on the screen. And so I am, telling you these stories. If you feel like that, really try to work on what it is that is driving you, or why, either one way or the other, right? So if you're driving to succeed, that's my thing. Then figure out why that is driving you. What are those emotions that are driving you? And then if you're really in a terrible spot right now, maybe you have addictions. Maybe you have, difficulties with eating. Maybe you have whatever it is. I don't know what your thing is that you have. Try to work on what is driving you to feel that way, that you need to actually do that. I think that is probably the fundamental sort of psychological thing that people will ask you to do if you go to a counseling office. It will be, and all this kind of stuff. I've been to counselors for some of this stuff, and psychologists and stuff like that. So I know. So you have to work on some of these things that drive you, that in one way or the other, and realize that some of these emotions are really positive things in your life, but at the same time, learn how to deal with that in terms of the negative component of it. Know that it's information, that those emotions are information that are giving you, that maybe you should be doing something, or, maybe that there's something that you can change. try to work on that as a human being and work on those emotions. And hopefully, you know, if you're watching this at any age, right? So if you're 16 years old and watching this, know that we all struggle with this. If you're 80 years old and still watching this, know that that you can actually keep going and keep working on some of these things. I truly don't believe that you know, after a certain age, at 65 years old, you stop learning, everything sort of shuts off. I don't think that's the way that life works. I think that there's a fair bit of evidence for that, but, you know that you can keep working on these